In this lesson, I'm going to talk about what variables are in Java and how do we use these variables within our program. So a variable simply provides, as I mentioned in the previous lesson, us with named storage, right? They store data that our programs can manipulate. So each variable in Java, for example, has a specific type, which simply determines the size and layout of the variable's memory storage. It also determines the size and layout and the range of values that can be stored within that memory and a set of operations that can be applied to the variable. We must declare all variables before they can be used. And recall from previous lesson, we talked about three basic kinds of variables: local variables, instance variables, and your static or class variables. Next, I'm going to demonstrate the use of these variables and how we can manipulate within a small Java program these variables, so at least you'll be able to see the output of different kinds of variables. So let's dive into our Eclipse editor. So once I'm in the Eclipse, I'm going to go ahead and simply right click and create a new class. And this is going to be a public class also. So just right click, go to new and choose class. And notice, since the source folder is Java introduction and then /src, and the reason why is because I right click on the Java introduction. If I were to right click on the source, then my path would change. So make sure you're using either or path the way you like to within your own installation. So I'm going to call this using variables. Cannot have a dot. Click finish. And notice we now get using variables.java, and this is displayed. So let me close the previous hello world right here. Great. So let's get rid of this, start from scratch. So let's place a comment here. I'm going to say using variables and then simply close our comment. Next, start with our public class, and I'm going to call it using variables. Let's open our curly braces and let's do the public class and set the properties. So public static void and then main, and then our string array goes in here with our arguments, if any. Open up the other curly braces, and next I'm going to define my variable names. So this is where I'm going to tell Java, for example, use this name and set a property or value for this variable. So first I'm going to demonstrate, let's say, the integer. So it'll be int. I'm going to call it my number, and I'm going to set this equal to, let's say, 88, a semicolon. Next would be the short type, and these are again just displaying different types of data inputs that Java allows. So I'm going to say my short equals just any number, 847, and next the long type, my long would equal to, let's say, another number. I can also show you another one. Let's say it's double. My double would equal, and this time I'm going to use a float number. Float is simply a decimal, right? So it'll be 7.345 or 541 or whatever. Semicolon, and next, let's say a float. My float would equal 324.3f. Semicolon, specify the character as my char equals that to a yes. Put a semicolon. Also specify a boolean. So boolean, and then my boolean equals false. Just setting the flag here. And then I can specify a byte to my byte equals 127 or 124 or any number. Once I have the variables defined, and again I'm defining different kinds of variables just so you can see the output. Next, I'm going to have to tell Java to print the output, right? So it'll be system.out.print print, and then of course the name of the variables. So this will be my number, semicolon, and I'm just going to copy it, right? So I'm going to copy this because all we have to do is next change the variable names. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it several times and just change the variable names, right? So instead of my number, next variable is short, and then long. See how quick this is? Double, and then I'm going to have float. Paste this line again, and next after float I have the char, and then two more, right? Boolean and my byte. So paste a couple of times and just delete some of this and type the name of the variable, and the last variable we had was the byte. And notice how the editors kind of tell you as you type the variable name, it tells you that, hey, if you're typing my byte, then you're referring to this variable up here. And make sure our set of curly braces are closed. So two curly braces are closed here, and if I scroll up, I have two curly braces as open. Okay, so you want to make sure that you match these up. Perfect. So we have a code, and before I even run it, notice what these editors do, or Eclipse does. It places a red X, right? A small red circle with an X that just says that there's a syntax error, and I need to insert a semicolon to complete the statement. Wonderful. So right off the bat, I can tell that, you know, there's an error before I even run it. So I'm going to make sure I have my semicolon, and now all my errors are corrected. Perfect. So let's run this. Just click on the run. Brings up the save and launch dialog box. Click OK, and notice we get the output in the console window. So these are again just different types of variables that I wanted to demonstrate that Java would print out for you. So whether it's an integer, whether it's a short integer, long, double, float number, character, or a Boolean value, for example, byte, and so on. So variables again store value or data that we can later manipulate. So I hope this helps practice, and let's move to the next lesson.